Parlays and player props are back. It's week 8 of the NFL season today. I got 4 player props plus 1 parlay play entry. Let's go 4-0. Let's dominate week 8. First, we got to do a recap of Thursday Night Football. Should have been a 2-0 day. Let's talk about it. Rashad White's over 21.5 receiving yards, free as air. Gabe Davis over 19.5 longest reception. You could have taken any Gabe Davis prop except for that one, and you would have cashed. He had like 9 receptions for like 90 yards. You only had a long reception of 16. Just a brutal beat there, but either way, I felt like the read was there. We got 4 picks. No more longest reception props. We got 4 picks, 4 winners. Let's dive into it. As I talked about, Parlay Play, we love them. We talk about them every now and then. They are one of our newer sponsors. There's a great place to get those player props and bet and make some money. And the best part is if you sign up with our code COS, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100. I'll talk about how my entry later on in this video. One of their cooler advantages that they have over, the PrizePicks, Underdog Fantasies of the world, because they let you reduce one of your lines. So for instance, later on in this video, I'm showing how I'm reducing a receptions line from 6.5 or 7 down to 6.5, obviously getting you some value there. But let's dive into the 4 picks. The first one of the weekend is going to be a game I'm actually attending. It's going to be Cooper Kupp over 84.5 receiving yards, minus 115 on BetMGM. Yes, I will be in attendance of this Rams and Cowboys game on Sunday. So if you're there, hopefully you're cheering on Cooper Kupp. And if you're a Cowboys fan, hopefully Cooper Kupp has 100 yards and the Rams get absolutely smoked. But let's talk about why I'm on Cooper Kupp this week. Because if you recall, last week I backed Puka Nacua. I actually thought it was a big Puka Nacua week. And he went off. He had 8 receptions for 154 yards. It was one of those instances where I was like, dang, I wish I had laddered his yards or his receptions. But during that process, we saw Cooper Kupp not have a good game. Only set 2 receptions, 7 targets, 29 yards. Yeah, I don't really expect Cooper Kupp to only have 2 receptions for 29 yards once again. I expect them to get him involved a little bit more. If we saw Puka Nacua in that game, we saw really the Cooper Kupp, they're bottling him up. They were just kind of leaving Puka wide open, the Steelers, that is, and they were just taking advantage of. But I think this is going to be a good matchup for him to take advantage of, as I don't really love the matchup for Puka Nacua. Heck, I even lean Puka's under. I think this is a big Kupp game. And we've seen this season, Kupp only in 3 games, 118, 148, and 29 receiving yards. In his last matchup versus Dallas last year, Kupp, 7 receptions, 125 yards last season. Now, obviously, this is the Dallas Cowboys defense, has a lot of similar pieces, some different ones. The Rams offense, very similar, but they don't really have a great running back. Those guys are still injured. And Puka Nacua gives him another guy on the outside where you can't really double Cooper Kupp as easily. We saw what happened when you double covered him. Puka Nacua just went off for 154 yards. So I like them to get Kupp the ball in his hands early. Last week, they kind of were using Puka as that, read, pass, or, pass or run option where Stafford would just sling it out to Puka, let him run up the field to get 10. Sometimes he would break some tackles and get that yards after catch. That's not really great against the Cowboys, a team that doesn't give up a ton of yards after the catch. So I really think this is a big Cooper Kupp bounce back week. They are 6.5-point underdogs on the road. So if this is a game where the Cowboys do control it, we'll see some more of, that heavy passing game for this Rams offense, which we already know they have a lot of running backs still banged up. So I like Cooper Kupp to have a big bounce back week. We'll take us over 84.5 receiving yards, minus 115 on BetMGM. I would play it up to right around 87.5. That's about as high as I would go. Let's move on to actually an identical play to what we did with Puka Nacua last week, except it was a different wide receiver. It's Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints. I like him for 5+ receptions and 50+ yards, currently plus 135 on Bet365. Now, if you're like Austin, I don't have the ability to do same game parlays like this, I would just take Chris Olave's over in receptions. However, that was a little bit juiced. I saw some books at minus 125, but it's getting juiced more and more as just I speak. So it's probably up to minus 140 or minus 150. And while I don't hate that, I think there's value in taking 5+ receptions and 50+ yards. Worst case scenario, if he gets 5 receptions and doesn't get 50 yards, I'll just be an absolute pain. But I don't think that's happening. This season, we've seen Olave, when he's played well, normally clears this line, but you've seen him. He has 8, 6, 8. 1 and 2, those 2 weeks that Derek Carr was injured, and 7 and 7 receptions, ending with 50+ receiving yards in all 5 games that he had 5+ receptions in. Like I said, this is more of a deep play guy. This is not a guy that's catching 2-yard routes, and like that's Alvin Kamara's job. He's the one that catches the 2-yard receptions as 12 receptions for 25 yards. Chris Olave is getting a little bit deeper down the field, and this is a Colts team great at stopping the run. We've seen New Orleans hasn't had the most consistent running attack, and we've seen other guys just have to pass against the Colts. Now, last week, they only really gave up one long run to Jerome Ford. And then outside of that, really the Browns offense didn't have a lot going, and they had to start PJ Walker came in relief. It's just a weird game for the Browns last week. But we've seen so far, Derek Carr and Chris Olave, a great connection through 7 weeks. We have seen this Colts defense really struggle. They've allowed 15 players to have 5 or more receptions against them, and another 6 have had 4+ receptions. So 21 people in 7 weeks have had at least 4 receptions against the Colts. Last week, we tried to target Amari Cooper versus them, but he only had 2 receptions on 8 targets. PJ Walker and him were just not connecting. But I like Olave. He has a much higher target share. This is a guy that gets a lot of targets. Last week, 15 targets for Olave. I think this is great value here at 5 receptions for 50 plus receiving yards. I really don't think, this Olave, obviously, he could do it at one catch, the 50 receiving yards, but I really do think he has a large target share in this one. I think this is a good spot to back him. So Chris Olave, I think the value's there. I think the next best odds was like plus 108 on FanDuel. Don't quote me on that, but either way, I really do like Chris Olave on Sunday. I think he has a big game against the Colts. Not sure who wins that one. Hopefully the Colts are down, or the Saints are down in that one, but we'll see. Chris Olave, 5 receptions in 50 yards, a 2-leg same game parlay. Now my third one, we're going to lay a little bit of juice, drinking a little bit of juice on a Sunday. Not the worst thing to do. DJ Moore, I like his over 4.5 receptions, minus 140 on DraftKings. If you notice, and you'll see with my last pick, which is my biggest one of the video, 1.5 units, I like the receptions props. I feel like a prop market that we've done well on this season, kind of predicting guys to get good volume. Sometimes the yards aren't always there, but I like the volume for these guys, especially for DJ Moore. Now, this was a guy heavily considered to do 6+ receptions. That's about plus 160, but I feel like I prefer to lay a little bit of juice here on this Sunday night football game because we've seen Moore pretty consistent recently. But if you want to go ladder it up, get my sign of approval. Let's talk about DJ Moore because over the last 4 games, obviously the first couple games it was like, ooh, DJ Moore is not going to be great. But last 4 games, very good. 8-8-5 at 8 receptions. In 6 quarters with Badgett at QB, we've seen Fields obviously ruled out. Moore has 12 receptions in just 6 quarters with him. And that included a game against the Raiders where the Bears actually were up a ton in that game. This projects to be a game against the Chargers. Sure, say what you want about them. Chargers are still 9.5-point favorites in this game. We should see the Bears trailing from behind. And this is a team in the Bears that really doesn't let their QB throw it all too far. He's an average target depth of just 4.6 yards. There's a reason last week, 8 receptions for DJ Moore. 54 yards. That's why I'm not doing, the 5 receptions for 50 yards, because there is a reasonable possibility where DJ Moore does get 5 receptions and doesn't get 50 yards. So that's why I don't really think there's a necessity to do that, but I still do think this is a good matchup for him. In 6 games this season, Chargers allowed 5 receptions to 11 players. They've allowed 8+ receptions to 5 players and 11 and 12 to Kelce and Tyreek Hill. We just saw Kelce absolutely abuse this team in the first half. Number 1 wide receivers like DJ Moore have done well versus them. Justin Jefferson had 7 for like 139. CeeDee Lamb had 7 for I think 117 versus them. I really do think DJ Moore is in for another high volume day. I don't necessarily know if the yards come, but I think those short receptions, trying to get the ball out of Bagent's hands so that you don't see Khalil Mack running off the edge at him. I like the over 4.5 receptions. Willing to drink a little bit of juice, but I think it's reasonable to drink the juice. Now, my 4th and final play of the week, it's going to be my biggest play of the week last week. If I remind you, I took DeAndre Swift's over 13.5 rushing attempts, a 1.5 unit play. This week, we're going to another Philadelphia Eagle, 1.5 units tied up on him. It is Devonte Smith. Now, let's talk about how I'm playing his receptions prop. Now, personally, I'm putting 1 unit on his over 4.5 receptions, which is plus 120 on Bet365. I've thrown another quarter unit on him to get 1 more reception, 6+ at plus 250. Then I threw another quarter unit on him to get 7+ receptions at plus 500. So overall, if he gets 7 receptions, we're in for a big day from Devonte Smith. Now, if you're just on a book and you can only take the 4, you can take that at a push potential. You can take a 4.5 for just plus 120 if you don't have the ability to ladder, or maybe you don't get great odds like you might on Bet365. But I do think that Devonte Smith is in for a big day, and let's talk exactly why that. We just really need him to get 5 receptions, and we at least make some money. But if he gets 6 or 7, we're making even a bigger payday. But let's talk about Devonte Smith because I think he's on for a big week. No, but first, we got to talk about his teammate, A.J. Brown, who's been absolutely scorched earth. 125+ receiving yards, 5 straight games, including 175 on 9 receptions last time they faced the Commanders. Now, as a result of this crazy, and I'll say it, unsustainable A.J. Brown production, we've seen Devontae's production drop off a little bit. If you have him in fantasy football, you're like, what the heck's this guy doing out there? A.J. Brown's getting 300 fantasy points. Devonte Smith's getting like 3. Well, I think this is a good game for Devonte Smith to bounce back. Don't bench him in your lineups. I think he's going to have a big day. In 7 games this season, Smith does have 4 receptions, which doesn't count for anything here, in 6 of those 7. So getting a really high floor here, but he does have 5 receptions in 3 of 7. He does have 7 receptions in 2 of 7, cashing the full ladder. In his last 3 games against the Commanders, 8, 6, and 7 receptions. Now, the 7 was this week, this year versus Washington. Last year, he had 8 and 6. I already talked about A.J. Brown, had 175 on 9 receptions earlier this year against the Commanders. Look, the Commanders' defense is not very good. I don't need to tell you that. If you're a Commanders fan, you know that. If you're an Eagles fan, you've seen it. But in a divisional game, they already got cooked once by A.J. Brown. Let him go for 175. I think he had 1 or 2 touchdowns there. I would be very surprised if we see them let him cook them once again. This is a obviously divisional game. I think they're going to throw 2 guys on him. And I think Devonte Smith's going to have a lot of open coverage. I think he's going to have a big day. We've already seen the Commanders defense allowed 11 players in 7 weeks to have 5 or more receptions. And 6 of those guys had 7 plus receptions. So 6 guys this season in 7 weeks have cashed the full ladder. 7, I know, is a lofty goal for Devonte Smith, but this is not sometimes a guy that they're throwing deep down the field. I think they try to get him short and involved early. We've seen his targets go very up and down recently. We saw him have 9 one week, down to 5. 11, now back down to 5 last week. If we can get back up to the 8, 9, 10 targets, I think he's going to connect on some of these. I just don't trust the Commanders DBs to keep up with him. I think this is a big Devonte Smith week. So we're taking his over in receptions. We're laddering it up a little bit. If he gets 7 receptions, that would be a massive week for us. But I really do think he's in for another big week this week. I know he hasn't had a big week in a couple weeks. I think this is the weekend against Washington. I think they try to sell out, stop A.J. Brown and the run game. I think Devonte Smith's going to be in the line for a big, big day. Let's finally wrap up the video with my parlay play entry. Let's talk about it. Cooper Kupp, more than 6.5 receptions. Like I said, you can reduce a line once per day. I reduced it down from 7. Devonte Smith, more than 4 receptions. I think at worst we get a push there, and hopefully more than that. Hopefully he cashes that. And Chris Olave, more than 5 receptions. Sure, it could, push there, but I do think that this is a good one. You can turn $20 into $100 with this parlay play entry. And speaking of $100, you can get a 100% deposit match up to $100 on parlay play. Just make sure you use our code COS or the top link in description for Parlay Play. Sign up. We love them. They have a bunch of different cool features. Super easy app to just maneuver around. But either way, this is going to be the only NFL video of the weekend. 4 picks. Sticking to it. I know it hasn't been the greatest NFL season. 1-4 in a week like this, and we cash a Devonte Smith ladder. We're right back in this thing. So those are my 4 favorite picks. Let me know your favorite picks down below. If you want to go check out some other videos on the channel, they're all popping up on the screen. Go show them some love. I'll see you back for my only NFL people for Monday Night Football, which probably will be posted Monday morning. This is Austin. I'm signing out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.